Marcus Rashford is in red-hot form at the moment.
Responsibility. It's Rashford for England. It's 5.
But not too long ago, he was blamed for England's Euro final defeat.
And Rashford has missed.
Booed by his own fans and criticised for having an attitude.
Well, yeah, mainly because of his attitude.
His journey is like a graph chart of his stock market. His value rose as a kid, corrected like a crash, and now the question, at 28 years old and supposedly an age when most players peaked, is he on the rise again? Inside Manchester United's academy, there's a special track reserved only for the most freakishly gifted youngsters. The program almost never bends its own rules, but they broke it once for an 11-year-old from Wythenshawe named Marcus Rashford. Before he'd even hit puberty, he was lining up with much older boys, lads like Paul Pogba, Ravel Morrison, and Jesse Lingard. The coaches saw something different in him: the tiny frame, the calm first touch, the pace that didn't need a runway. By 15, Rashford was invited to train with the senior squad for the first time, a moment only a handful could reach. He got invited way before Pogba, which showed how ridiculously good he was. By 17, after scoring 8 goals in 6 matches, while playing 2 age groups above him, Louis van Gaal started naming him on the first team bench. Van Gaal even told the press he had rejected multiple loan offers for the new Patrick Kluivert. And then came the night that changed everything. Europa League, round of 32. Manchester United were down to bare bones, with 13 players out injured. During the warm-up, their last fit winger, Anthony Martial, pulled up and limped off. Van Gaal had a decision to make, and he tossed Rashford into the squad. 60 minutes in, United were being held by one of the weakest teams in the competition, Midtjylland, and they were barely surviving thanks to an own goal. Out of nowhere, Rashford popped up in the box to smash one, breaking George Best's 51-year record as the club's youngest ever European goalscorer. 11 minutes later, he scored again. United won 5-1, and he bagged the man of the match on his debut. The hype was instant, the headlines, the interviews, the next big thing tag. Van Gaal tried to calm the frenzy, warning that youngsters often shine in their first match, but the second one is different. 3 days later came Arsenal. Rashford was in the starting 11 and destroyed the theory with 2 goals, 1 assist, a 3-2 win over Wenger's men. He then went on to break Rooney's record as the youngest ever goalscorer in a Manchester derby. He lifted an FA Cup winner's medal. He signed a £20,000 a week contract. Even Thierry Henry went on TV saying the boy reminded him of himself. But that wasn't the wildest part. Despite every manager saying he was a rising star, Rashford got an England call-up for the 2016 Euros before he'd even played a full season in the Premier League. 9 days after that call-up, he scored 138 seconds into his debut, becoming England's youngest ever debut goalscorer at a major tournament, celebrating alongside his idol Wayne Rooney. Even Rashford, in his own words, said, "6 months ago, I was trying to get into United's under-21 side. Now I'm here. None of this feels real." And he was right, it was the perfect opening act. A local kid who rose out of nowhere to give hope to a club in crisis, broke records on debut for both club and country, and carried the weight of his city on teenage shoulders. But every fairy tale rise eventually meets the first cracks. Eventually, United's revival would stall, managers would change, and the wonderkid would soon discover that a dream debut doesn't guarantee a dream career. What made Rashford different wasn't just the goals or the celebrations, it was the sense that he was more than a footballer. As the seasons rolled on under Jose Mourinho and later Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Rashford became the face of United's rebuild. By 2019, he had sharpened his finishing, learned to time his runs behind defenders, and developed the kind of blistering pace that terrified fullbacks. In the 2019-20 campaign, he hit 22 goals in all competitions, his best tally yet, and he was only 22 years old. To United supporters, it looked like the prophecy of a new homegrown talisman was finally coming true. But off the pitch was where his legend grew even larger. In 2020, with stadiums empty due to the pandemic, headlines about football were suddenly replaced by stories of hunger across Britain. When the government decided to cut free school meal funding during lockdown, Rashford couldn't stay silent. When France lifted the 1998 World Cup, Rashford was living on free school meals as a kid. Drawing from this childhood memory, he wrote open letters, campaigned relentlessly, and spoke in a tone that made cabinet ministers squirm. "Without the kindness of my community, I wouldn't be standing here today," he admitted in one of those appeals. It wasn't hypocrisy from him, it was a lived experience speaking to millions. Parents wrote to thank him for keeping their children fed. Kids drew pictures of him wearing a cape. What began as a footballer's plea turned into a movement that forced the government into not just one, but two policy U-turns worth hundreds of millions. By the end of that year, Rashford was awarded an MBE by the Queen. Newspapers hailed him as the moral compass of a generation. For many, it felt as though his foot was scoring goals on the weekend, while his hands were feeding the nation during the week. This double life as a hero in Manchester and a hero to families across Britain made him untouchable in the public eye. But it also came at a cost few noticed. The extra weight of expectation, the strain of constant injuries managed quietly with injections, and the fatigue of carrying two kinds of responsibility began to hit him hard. The smile and the headlines still looked perfect. The goals kept coming, the awards kept stacking up, but beneath the applause, the first hairline fractures had begun to show, hinting that the rise had reached its ceiling. But no matter how untouchable he looked, football always finds a way to test its heroes, and Rashford's first real test was just around the corner. The strange thing about a fall is that it never feels like a fall at first. Rashford was playing through injuries, taping up his shoulder and managing a back that had been aching since winter. He'd built a reputation as the kid who never hid, so he didn't start now, or more accurately, he couldn't. But when your superpower is acceleration and your body stops answering when you ask for it, the game turns cruel. The finishes that used to fizz inside the far post drifted harmlessly to the keeper. He was tired, exhausted, and in a way, finished. The drastic drop in his numbers spoke volumes. After a blistering run that had him on 20 goal contributions in 20 matches, the fracture came, literally. You could feel it. Rashford wasn't, well, Rashford anymore. But that wasn't even rock bottom. The trigger for his fall actually came on July 11th, 2021 at the Euro final. England versus Italy. Rashford is called on the touchline, and all through that tournament, he barely got a sniff of minutes. But on this particular day, he was brought on in the 120th minute, exclusively for a penalty shootout. He stands over the ball. The run-up is calm, maybe too calm. The shot kisses the outside of the post and flies out into silence. In a heartbeat, the dream of his entire nation's 55-year wait for a major trophy collapsed, and almost immediately, the backlash was swift. His mural in Manchester was defaced, his inbox filled with slurs, death threats, racial abuse, and a nation that had once cheered his courage now questioned his right to be there at all. Rashford's tank had been empty for months. That miss was just the first moment everyone saw. From there, the fall accelerated. He finally decided to address his shoulder issue and took some time away from football. But even when he came back under a new coach, the minutes came, but the spark didn't. He scored 2 goals in roughly 320 days. He looked like a player searching for the switch, only to find darkness. Every miss became a meme. People stitched together reels of him jogging instead of sprinting. His body language was a shrug after a miscontrol or a one-on-one shot dragged wide. The media, as always, was ready to talk bad about him. Some fans turned on him. His national team stopped calling. Under Ten Hag, he was frequently used as a striker. He did score in crucial games, matched his previous goal contributions as early as October in the 2023 campaign, but the mental strength in him was gone. In November 2023, Rashford was dropped for hosting a birthday party immediately after losing to Manchester City. The next month, he was dropped again as a punishment for oversleeping and being late for a team meeting. But more disciplinary issues were to follow during Ten Hag's reign. In January 2024, he called in sick for an FA Cup game against Newport County, which the club exposed as a lie by Rashford. He just didn't want to play against a lower side and was disciplined internally by the club. It didn't help that United were still nowhere near competing. Ten Hag was sacked and Amorim replaced them, but this was when things got worse for Rashford. Under Amorim, Rashford was never in contention as a first-team player, but whenever he plays, he couldn't deliver. He stopped giving his best, and all it took was a few games for Amorim to drop him off totally. In a response to that, Rashford threw a bomb by going to the media saying he was ready for a new challenge. Amorim was questioned about Rashford's lack of game time, and the coach's response nailed Rashford to the coffin, because Amorim didn't want to select someone who doesn't give the maximum every day. They say that the grass is always greener on the other side, and Rashford's time on loan at Aston Villa felt like a lifeline. He registered 10 goals and assists in 17 games for the club. But it wasn't just that. It was how he made Villa better, competitive, and even more threatening. The revival didn't move Manchester United, but it caught the eye of another giant. Hansi Flick, more than any other manager, was really impressed. When the idea of Marcus Rashford to Barcelona first came around, it sounded like a fantasy, like the kind of rumor an agent plans in the media to inflate his client's value. Barcelona were supposed to be broke, clinging to the lost memories of Messi, selling off assets just to keep the lights on. Rashford, meanwhile, looked broken, out of form, out of love with football, and out of answers at Manchester United. And yet, the call came. Barcelona's new project needed energy. They needed a forward who could stretch defenses, who could dart into the spaces. Hansi Flick looked at Rashford and didn't see the tired boy from Manchester. He saw the reloaded virgin at Aston Villa, who, in the right environment, could still terrify defenders. For Rashford, hesitation was natural. Leaving United was walking away from his identity, his home, his entire story. But if he stayed, the weight of expectations might finish him for good. So he took that leap, and boy did he hit the ground running. His performances for Barcelona this season needs no introduction, like his now iconic performance on September 18, 2025, Champions League football under the lights at St. James's Park. For Barcelona, it was a hostile ground. For Rashford, it was a test of whether the move to Spain was the right one. And indeed it was, as the striker scored twice, a header, and a thunderous finish hit with the kind of venom United fans once worshipped. And ever since that performance, Rashford has been on fire and has been directly involved in 3 goals and 5 assists for Barca in just 10 games. But more importantly is the way he now moves. The sharpness is back, the fearlessness is back. Defenders back off from him again, not because of his reputation, but because he could hurt them. With Lamine Yamal having injury problems, Rashford repaid the faith of Hansi Flick with consistent performances. For England, the turnaround is just as remarkable. The same player who once stood in Wembley head bowed after missing that Euro 2020 penalty. is now back in the Three Lions shirt as one of Thomas Tuchel's most reliable forwards. Rashford isn't 30 yet, but the rise again must be credited to Hansi Flick as well. But the German coach isn't the only manager who could see things. Jose Mourinho saw where Manchester United was headed back in 2018. So be sure to check out this next video, and I'll see you there.